the staff hours, how you would approach the project. So, am I reading that right?
Yes, you are. And to safeguard my friend Rick, I put this together, and the 10% that he has, 10% hours that he has, includes all the hours that take into account the civil, the environmental, the cost estimating, and the traffic folks as well. So there's a lot of technical information that becomes the basis of what the workshops actually operate in. The interesting thing is that we find ourselves, by the time we do our constraints and opportunities, you know, the technical information, the programmatic information, we find ourselves like in August there. And again, the concern is that the great time to do outreach? And so what we have proposed in our project schedule are these workshops that take place in the fall, and we're just wondering, can we move them up? Can we have a public workshop, a public outreach in August in Atherton and have it be worth our while? I'm thinking that we're going to be able to push that, or should push that into September, and that's why there's that little gap. So essentially we're collecting all the information in the summer, and we're doing all the workshops in the fall. And that's why those hours and that schedule look that way.
And that nothing that you see here is set in stone either. If more of my
That's
time
right.
is needed at a certain phase, then I'll definitely step up and be part of that.
That's
I have a question as a follow-up to one of the reference checks.
Yes.
That's okay. And then I think we need to ask you. Carol Gamble would not answer because apparently their city attorney had said that there were claims pending for both the design and the construction. Can you address this and give us an idea of what happened there?
Yeah, that's a good statement.
Well, I hope it's fair.
No, it's totally fair. And Carol's a great friend, great advocate of our firm. Both Griffin and LPA were involved in that project 10 years ago at year number 9 through some changes in the city can have. There was more scrutiny on the building, and there was discovered some leaks in the building. And so that issue has materialized to a point where we've asked the contractor to get involved, and the contractor is no longer in town. And so when the contractors leave, the architects get invited. And so we are working through that process. It's our responsibility to be involved in the resolution of that. And both Griffin and LPA have stepped up to help the city resolve that issue. So, unfortunately, Carol wasn't able to say anything to you. It was a great project, but there were some
What
issues.
city is this?
Rancho Santa Margarita.
City of Rancho Santa Margarita.
And I guess my second question is to,
Yes.
can you explain what you're doing? What the 3 Ps are?
Sure.
We have a minute. I have.
No, that was going to be my question. You know, why do you understand that more?
We have 30-plus years as program and construction managers. And as such, we, with so many communities being financially constrained, and we also deal with a lot of nonprofit institutions, we find we have to get creative on financing methods. But our main focus is taking the master plans that these guys come up with and finding out how we implement them. And how we do that is through any combination. A perfect example would be the Watsonville Civic Plaza that we did there. We ended up having 9 different funding streams to take care of that project. So as the program managers, we helped oversee all of the mixed users that went in there. So we had on 2 floors, we had the library. On the 3rd floor, we had the judges' chambers, and then on the top floor, we had the city hall. And then in addition to that, there was a parking structure. So we had some FEMA dollars because that town was hit pretty hard with an earthquake. So we took some of those funds. The Friends of the Library had some funds because they couldn't actually get their library funds, so we helped move them in there, and we helped them write some grants to match that. at the end of the day, we had 9 different pots of money. We were able to manage all those different streams, making sure that we stayed within we came up with a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price for the overall project, because the city leaders wanted to know, they had X amount of dollars, and they wanted me to make sure that they got what they deserved and what their money's worth was. So our role was kind of coming up, understanding what the master plan is, and figuring out how we now implement that.
And kind of keeping all the buckets of money.
Correct. Correct.
Clean and not putting
Correct.
those in areas.
Correct.
I mean, because we have library funds available, but it can only be used to build the library functionality. It cannot be used to build any part of the town center or the police department. We have so many available that's set aside for the building department portion of the town hall. And then we have to do fundraising for the rest,
Sure.
effectively.
So with that said, with the Watsonville used now as an example, because you had so many different functions in one building, what we were able to do is use those funds strictly for the work that went into the library itself. We had another architect that the client had already hired and worked closely with the LPA team to kind of integrate the overall core and shell of the building, and then also delivering to what the dollar amount that they had there. In addition to that, we introduced them to other grant writers that we knew would be of help, because we do so many municipal projects that we know a lot of grant writers that are really good at libraries, some that are really good at community centers, some that are good at senior centers, and it helped them write this, and actually, we got it done. We got it done ahead of schedule and brought it in under budget.
How much, what was your budget?
I think that one was 38, I think our budget was like 39 million, and we came in at 38.4 million, so somewhere around there. And that included the parking structure as well,
This
too.
will be a much smaller.
Right, but we've done projects as small as $1 million as
Okay.
well.
Building will.
I've got a question along that same line, for either Jim or Frank. As you weave into all this that you talked about, how do you weave in the cost estimates and where this thing is going? We don't want to come to the end of the road and say, oh, can't do that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a concern that the knowledgeable clients have. We have a lot of experience, obviously, in building these cities. We have a gut level of what these buildings are going to cost. But we have really found a good ally in Cummings Corporation, who takes a global viewpoint of the economy, and then also is able to break California down into the different micro economic climates. Obviously, a concern that we all have is the upward pressure that projects like the stadium and Apple and Irvine Company is putting on not only material costs, but labor costs, and the availability of labor for contractors to be acquired. And so Cummings will certainly build that into the financial model for the project. What we will be doing, obviously, at this level of master plan, it's not simply, but there aren't any schematic drawings or design development drawings, more detailed drawings. And so we will be relying on not only our experience, but on their database of the cost of construction in this area. One thing that we would offer up is the total cost of the project, because construction cost is only one portion of it. The interiors is obviously very important, and the fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, the FF&E, is very important. The technology is clearly part of it. Oftentimes what we do is we connect the servers, the boxes with blinky lights with the appropriate cable, and then the town's IT connects those cables. Well, sometimes we are involved in the purchasing of that IT equipment as well, so we can take that pretty far. And those are the buildings. There's really the estimating the cost of the infrastructure below ground, where the power's coming from, where the water's going to, and the landscaping and hardscape of the development as well. So that's when our landscape folks weigh in and kind of give Cummings a little bit of help, because there's some variables there. All that is the hard costs, and then the soft costs are the things that you all need to be reminded of. I think you already know it, but the costs for architects and engineers, the moving costs, the phasing costs, if there is financing costs, any fees that would come up, are those fees going to be waived? So the overall project cost is what we are interested in having a conversation with. Otherwise, if we just look at some of the costs, then our client doesn't know all that it's going to cost him or her to build the project. So we'd like to be encyclopedic in that coverage.
Let me add one more thing to that too. The other thing too, that our long history of working together, LP is very good at working with the teams to find out what's a wish list of things that are probably outside of the budget, so that when we do have that opportunity, like we have had on a number of our projects where we do come in underneath the budget and we know that in advance, we can integrate some of those things well in advance. A perfect example is the city of Fullerton. We just finished a pretty extensive library expansion there, and the librarian wanted a really nice book retrieval system there, because we had a very good bidding community at that time. We knew in advance that we were going to be able to do that, and they had written another grant, so they had some more matching dollars also. So we just pulled that off the list of one of the things they wanted to have, and it actually really ended up being a big success for them, for the facility there.
I just heard on the radio, Sunnyvale Library just got a 3D printer that was funded through a grant, and, you know, it's gonna be free for the residents to use on a scheduled basis. Isn't that amazing? That's
And a
good.
lot cheaper.
Huh?
They've gotten a lot cheaper.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
Oh, well, compared to what?
No, they
Oh, it's lovely, yeah, but they've got a lot cheaper.
They have a desktop version of them now. Have you seen
Yeah.
those? It's insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, Paul?
Rick, you mentioned some of the benefits of this site. From what you know about our little plot of land here, what are some of the challenges that you see in planning this site? If you could kind of specify some of those.
Well, like I said, I don't think they're really challenges. I see them more as opportunities, but there's a lot of mature trees, so it's about how we integrate those and work around those. There's the direct adjacency to the residential neighborhoods, the direct adjacency to the railroad tracks. I think all those things are going to start to temper the way in which we start to think about how the buildings are placed, how the parking is placed, the access to the site through the residential neighborhood. A lot of that is going to come into play in how this whole thing starts to materialize. But again, I see those as the elements that are going to really make this building something special. I see that the potential here of having a real moment with what can happen here architecturally and from a landscape perspective. I think this could become a really special place. I think it already is a special place, so to be able to kind of piggyback onto that, I mean, this building alone is so wonderful. I would love to see this as becoming the focal point of everything that we do on the site. Again, that's just my opinion, but we just had the opportunity to go walk around the park a minute ago, and I don't think I've ever seen a park like that. It's something so unique and so specific that I really think that the Civic Center needs to capture that specific nature of what Atherton's all about. And to me, it's not a challenge, but I think it's something that's going to really start to create a really wonderful solution for what this is. So it's all those little things, those little influences, the trees, the train, the residences, all those things which you typically see as challenges, I think are going to really make this an amazing and wonderful place to be.
Well, his head's in the clouds,
My
mine's
themes
on
and
the
clouds,
ground.
yeah.
Cool sound. But just the question of the library. Okay, in the draft EIR, when the library was planned over there, they said no library or put a new library on that site, 2-story, 13,500. Well, that's double moves, and you have to move those folks out of that existing facility, tear that down, build one up, move them back in. That's heartache versus finding some other chunk to build a library on site, and the phasing of that is fantastic. You almost want to say, yeah, you can put it all in one building, but that building becomes large, it has to all be funded at one time, and with the aspect of the police facility, you have the issue of designing that portion to essential services building standards that the other the other uses aren't required to do that. So that starts leaning into more of a pavilion scenario. And so it's just a great project, great opportunity to have these types of conversations with an interested public to work out where those options can go. So it's just a great project.
The other thing, and I'll speak for myself here, maybe I'm a provincial Northern California, but I noticed a bulk of your work in Southern California, you're based in Irvine, and you're familiar with, obviously, I saw Laguna Niguel City Hall Library last week, and was impressed with the architecture. But I'm wondering, you're based down there, you know how things work down there, you know the publications get involved in Malibu or whatever. How would you adjust what you do and educate yourselves to our area here?
I think that's all part of that beginning phase that Jim talked about. While he's out gathering all the technical information, I'm going to be gathering all the community information and how we start to relate, not only to the city staff, but to the community as well, and how we start to work with them. And frankly, not every city in Southern California is alike. I mean, everyone had a different approach, and we had to do the same thing. I mean, I look at every city as being a unique and specific design situation. So we will always go in and structure the way that we have, our whole process for design is structured specifically for that community, because every community, frankly, functions very differently. And the residents are very different. They have different passions. So we have to adjust the way that we think based on the way that they think. And that's going to be what I'm doing while we're getting all the technical information in play. But,
Yeah, we're essentially escorting you guys through the process. That's probably the best term that we call it, and just listening on the way and then interpreting back into the formation of a master plan that's supportable and implementable. And then how that is turned into architecture and landscape architecture that can only belong here in Atherton, nowhere else. It's a custom design town center. It matches your aesthetic desires with the fiscal constraints, and that's the solution. Because you don't have all the money you want to have to do everything you want to do, and it also needs to look like it belongs here. So that's designed where you're meshing the aesthetic desires with the fiscal constraints.
Anybody, Rose? Sure.
Yeah, the other firms we're considering are local and we're not. How can you explain to us how this is going to work with the distance and just, give us peace of mind that we're not going to
Sure.
have some communication issues and, the transportation issues and all
Yeah,
of that?
no, Rose, that's a real valid question. They had the same concern in Watsonville, in Reading, in Brentwood, in Tahoe. And it's a valid question. Clearly, you've seen in our presentation that we've said we have an office in San Jose, and we will. We are in negotiation with two landholders right now to work out a lease. But that doesn't help you, because that just muddies it up. That's just saying, well, in the middle of a startup office, you're going to try to meet our requirements. That's why we're proposing sponsoring this project out of Irvine and out of Roseville, where Kevin lives and comes from, even though he's going to be very, very involved in the San Jose office. We have people in town every day working on projects up here all the time. I don't know what I can do to assuage your fears, but we just travel all over the state. We don't travel all over the country or all over the world. We're not a national or international firm. California is where we office, and we make the appropriate arrangements to meet your needs when you need them met and where you need them met.
and it's our goal to make that happen as seamlessly as possible. I think if you call cities like Brentwood, I don't think they would ever have thought that we weren't living in Brentwood at the time. We would go to workshops one night, we'd be in meetings the next day, and we had, I can't remember how many workshops we had there. It was so many, I can't even remember, but we really regard our work process as being true to whatever community we're working in. So we'll make every effort to make it as seamless for you as possible, and I don't think it would really be something you're cognizant of, the fact that I'm based in Irvine, that Jim's based in Irvine, and Kevin's in Roseville, because we all work as a team together and we work all over the state.
And I've heard the argument, I've heard the argument that the local folks have their preconceptions of what this should be like, of what this should look like. And people with a fresh perspective can come in with more of a blank slate and listen without the filters and interpret without the prejudice. So it really comes down to who do you all feel comfortable proceeding with? And you guys will make that decision and you'll go on with the next chapter.
We always come with chocolate.
Every meeting.
We hope we're the folks, but,
That's
if
very
not,
nice.
have the chocolate.
Do you have any questions for us?
Oh. I have so many questions for you.
Before we let you go, and thank you very much. Does staff have any questions? Oh, Councilmember Dottie?
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't see you.
I'm interested in reporting. In other words, you're gonna be here, you're gonna be doing things. Are you gonna document everything and then on a monthly basis, come to us and say, this is what we've done, bing, 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 and it's all documented so we can see it? Is that the way you're gonna work?
Yeah, the way, probably the best term is each Friday, I just write up a summary. This is the activities of the week, and then we formalize those on a monthly basis. Some weeks are gonna be more active than others, some months are gonna be more active than others. But those start forming a compilation of decisions that we work into what essentially becomes a basis of design. And they incorporate all the small decisions that are the building blocks to the major directives for the project going forward. And that needs to be codified into a memorialized document for the next step. We feel that with our firm, we have the tools to take that next step right into fruition. But that would be ours to convince you of over the next 6 months. But in terms of the reporting, that is a document that gets built over the course of the project and becomes a compilation of the decisions that have been made. And
I think it's possible, I mean, knowing councils, that, you know, after first couple of reports, we say, you know, we don't think you're going in the right direction, or something. I mean, I'm not saying that happens, but then you have to decide, you know, well, does that change the price that we bid, or, I mean, tell me a little bit about it.
that's a real valid question. If we have been working together and moving in a direction that we all agree to be moving in, and some paradigm shift occurs that says, you know what, we need to move this project 90 degrees in a different direction, then we'll have a conversation. If it's 5 degrees in a different direction, let's move on. How's that quantified? It's just a matter of how much work has been done, how much work has to be redone. Do we need to go back and redo the outreach meetings? What is bringing that about? What is the amount of work that needs to be rediscovered? And that would be something that we would just have to work out. We don't usually sense that, because with the community outreach, then going through staff and going through CCAC, then with the liaisons from the council involved, we don't really see that big shift happening very
I
often.
think that a lot of times that comes from the architects kind of jumping ahead and making assumptions that shouldn't be made. And so I think what our process is all about, like I said, is listening. So if we're listening to you, or listening to council, or listening to staff, or listening to the community, that really shouldn't happen. You shouldn't get to a point where all of a sudden you say, hey, we made a wrong step. But of course, if it does, then we'll make the right steps to retract that. But I can't recall a single project where that's actually happened.
That's right.
Okay,
I mean,
we
to
have-
us.
We have another question.
Jim and Rick, what are the projects that you guys have on your plate between now and the end of the year?
You start.
Yeah, we are working through a significant project with Griffin for the County of Orange strategic plan. And that is due to county at the end of July. And I'm involved with that. I'm also involved with a automated parking garage in West Hollywood. And that is going out to bid now, so that will go off to my manager. And I am involved with a few other projects that I have delegated off to my managers. One is the renovation of a Richard Neutra church on the chapel of, on the Christ Cathedral campus, which comes to a close this month, which is just one of the great commissions of my life. And then we have other projects that are coming up, but I have managers taking care of those.
And I'm sort of the same, I have a staff of designers too that I work with, so I come in and out of projects, but typically in the beginning of a project, I'm very much that center person that you're looking for. But right now, I'm continuing on the West Hollywood project as well, but as Jim said, that's going to be going out to bid soon. I'm currently involved in sort of a restack replan of the West Hollywood City Hall, which is ongoing. And well, we have a great relationship with them, but it's not a huge factor in my time. I'm also working on Exploration, which is the new Newport Beach Nautical Museum. But right now we're in fundraising, so not a lot of my time's been spent on that. We've done a big chunk of the design on that. We just had a big fundraiser at the Balboa Bay Club, as a matter of fact, which was very successful. So, and that's an amazing project. I'm also working with Griffin Structures on the new Vietnam War Museum in Garden Grove. But again, that's in fundraising too, so a lot of my time has been cut back on that. I think other civic projects. I'm doing a lot of corporate work now too, corporate facilities, things like that. Doing a lot of work with Hoag Hospital, Memorial Healthcare, their corporate offices. But again, my involvement kind of goes in and out depending on what phase the project is in. So.
And Kevin, speaking for Kevin, we have a general development plan due on the old Marine base down in Tustin. We are planning an 85-acre park around the blimp hangar there, and that goes to the supervisors end of August. So it's tied up nicely.
So I noticed, real quickly, your
Yes.
consultants, you've got LSA, BKF, W-Trans Engineering. Have you worked with these consultants before? I mean, they're local.
Yeah.
I mean, we've obviously worked with LSA and BKF all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
is that why you chose them, or?
We worked with LSA before on a number of projects, mostly in the Southern California office. We worked with BKF on the Brentwood project, along with Cummings. We have not had experience with W-Trans, but LSA recommended that they join our team. With Cummings, obviously, we've worked with Bill for, 25 years.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll wrap it up.
Enjoy the chocolate.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
Nice.
a great color.
Yeah. Thank
So
you very much
bluesy,
for
yeah.
coming, we appreciate it. We will have an interview, and then we're gonna meet, and we'll
Very
later
good.
today.
Thank you all so
Thank
much.
All right. We'll kind of take a short recess. It's 2 o'clock and.
So they'll be setting up and then
Yeah.
starting at 2:30.
So we'll reconvene at 2:30.
So much.